Welcome in to the Fantasy Playmakers podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Popelars. You can find on Twitter at PopesFFH, joined as always by my co-host Ryan Mackey, who you can find on Twitter at Mackey_FFB. Ryan, despite me getting the name wrong, how's it going?
Not too bad, man. Unfortunately, I told you way before the show that I can't work right now. My daughter got moved to remote learning, so I unfortunately have to take some time off of work to stay home with her and do her school stuff here now. So it actually has been kind of nice because I was able to get some more. I was able to finish up an article I was writing and was able to do some more research for the pod today. So it's kind of a good and a bad thing because I don't make any money while I'm off, but I'm also not at risk of losing my job for it. So I get to get some stuff done. So other than that, man, it's been pretty good.
I mean, let's be real. Is there any better time to not have a job right now, though? Football season starting, you get to stay up, watch the game.
Well, that's
unlike most people.
I got to go back Friday. It's not like I'm going to be out for the week, but
the worst day to go back.
I'm taking a couple of days, and then my fiance is taking a couple of days as well. So
you should have tried and got the Friday off. That's what you should have done.
Yeah, but my work's a little bit more lenient. She had to make sure that her boss is okay with having her miss work, and my work. I don't ever miss work for anything unless I absolutely have to. So my boss was just kind of like, all right, yeah, go ahead and take it off. And
Fair enough. All right, before we jump into the show, Ryan, you know what time it is.
Yes, sir. Today's episode is brought to you by King Fantasy Sports. Go check out the King Sports Draft Kit and get the advantage over the rest of your league this season. Be sure you're doing the right preparation and start your season off right. You get everything from rankings, breakouts, and values to busts and sleepers. Does your league have some funky settings? Learn how to make your own projections as well. Stop sitting on the sidelines and buy this draft kit today. The guide is only $8.99. If you use our promo code Playmakers, you'll save an additional 10% off and get everything you'll need to not just compete but dominate your leagues this draft season.
Well said. All right, Ryan, the big news of the day that you led me on to. Le'Veon Bell is a Raven.
He is. I saw it pop up shortly before the show. I mentioned it to you, and you hadn't seemed to notice, so which I'm kind of surprised by. But I saw a lot of, as soon as Latavius Murray was released from New Orleans, everybody was like, okay, Ravens clear landing spot, definitely going there. Then let Bell sign literally a couple hours later, so that kind of killed that. But he signed to the practice squad to start off. He's going to take a minute, maybe a week or two, to get acclimated with the offense before he gets activated off the practice squad onto the actual active roster. So it kind of is what it is. He hasn't really done a whole lot since he was a Steeler, basically. I can't really remember him having a really great year for the Jets. So, I don't think it's much of anything in terms of fantasy. It might take away from a guy that I'm going to talk about later. But in terms of Gus Edwards' production or anything like that, I don't really see it eating into his workload all that much.
But here's a question. Now, obviously, Bell, we can argue, hasn't had 2 good years, 3 good years, possibly 4. Who knows? But the Ravens have a pretty good offensive line, and obviously they want to run a committee because otherwise, why would they bring in Bell other than like insurance for if Gus Edwards goes down? But I feel like Le'Veon Bell might have some fantasy value at some point this season. Like early on, yeah, you might see it as he's learning the offense or kind of just getting back in real football shape again. But I feel like Bell could have that pass catching upside if it's something that the Ravens want to use. You know what I mean? They adamantly wanted to add a pass catching back, which was going to be J.K. Dobbins this year. Not necessarily fully pass catching, but add that to their arsenal in the passing game. And now Gus Edwards, not that he can't do it, but he's not as good as, say, J.K. Dobbins was going to be. So you're adding Le'Veon Bell, who I think could definitely do that. Like you had alluded to, it definitely kills a couple people that were kind of sought after in the waiver wire when Dobbins went down. But I still want to monitor Le'Veon Bell. I think if I'm playing in a deep enough league where I have some room to add him, I think I would. I wouldn't go crazy and spend a ton of fab on him, but I'm interested to see how this works. I just think that the Ravens have just such a good run game that Le'Veon Bell. I mean, if we were excited over Tyson Williams and Justice Hill, like, why shouldn't we be over Le'Veon Bell? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I just feel like
I wasn't too high on Hill, to be honest with you, even with the Dobbins injury. But for me, I feel like at this point in his career, Bell is just that receiving change of pace style of back at this point, and they just don't throw enough to the running backs. I know that they have stated that they want to get that as a part of their offense, and that's a fair point. And it's just one of those things where I think I would rather just be wrong and just not have that on my team as opposed to taking the chance and possibly getting something. I feel like there's other guys that will probably come about later on in the season that are probably worth something more than what he's going to offer to you in that offense.
fair. All right, Ryan, it's week 1. Bucks, Cowboys, Thursday night. Then the rest are Sunday. I'm pretty amped. How about you?
We got a Monday game, right?
Yeah, we do. Who cares about that game?
What?
No one cares. I don't even know what it is.
I actually think it's the Raiders and the Raiders and the Ravens. I think.
Well, no one's watching without J.K. Dobbins anymore, anyway. So
everybody's gonna watch Lamar Jackson.
no, he's not even good. All right,
that's fair.
Okay, I was joking, Ryan. You're not supposed to agree with that statement. Jeez Louise. All right, Ryan. So say I was a poor drafter. Let's not say I am. And I need to add a waiver wire week 1 before the season even starts. My team's decimated. Somebody rosters J.K. Dobbins in every league. I won't know who that is. Who am I adding? Week 1. Who's your waiver wire ad for this week?
So, like I alluded to earlier, the Le'Veon Bell signing kind of killed mine. But Tyson Williams was the guy that I was super interested in. I still am especially for this week. I mean, he's only rostered in 20.1% of ESPN leagues. He's only rostered in 30% of redraft leagues and sleeper, and only 7% in NFL leagues. So he's one of only 2 healthy running backs expected to see any sort of work for the Ravens after the Dobbins and Justice Hill injury. I think he's surprisingly under rostered in the leagues outside of possibly sleeper, where he's, I think, 79% rostered in dynasty leagues and 30% in redraft leagues, oddly enough. And as one game that's projected to be one of the higher scorings of the week, he could see a decent amount of run. I mean, two running backs saw double-digit touches in 7 different games last year. Baltimore ran the ball on 55% of their plays last season and ran even more while on the road at 56%, according to TeamRankings.com. With all that said, Vegas gave up the 4th most fantasy points and rushing touchdowns to running backs last season, tied for the 7th most receiving touchdowns and red zone targets running backs, 10th most overall red zone touches to running backs, and 13th most goal-to-go touches for running backs last season, according to NFL.com stats. And they were the only team in the league to give up a touchdown on more than half of their defensive drives last year, allowing teams to score on 50.3% of their offensive drives. And they allowed the 7th most yards per carry in the league with 4.6. Williams has looked really good this preseason, showed really good vision, and a guy that can just constantly turning his legs. And he looked really smooth catching the ball in the backfield. So this is a game that could get out of hand, especially if Baltimore can contain the speed of the Raiders receivers there and control the clock. So if you're in a deeper league, and when I say deeper, probably 12, if not 14 and deeper, I'd be firing Williams up in my lineup.
That's a pretty bold claim. Not going to lie. You really think he's going to have that much run in week 1? In all honesty. I just feel like he's not. You know what I mean?
They didn't go – Dobbins isn't Edwards, and J.K. Dobbins only saw an overwhelming majority of the carries in 2 games last year. Any other time it was basically 2 backs had like 12 or 11, and another guy had like 5 or 6. And
but I mean, you're talking Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. You're not talking Gus Edwards and Tyson Williams.
That's the thing. Gus Edwards hasn't been that guy for them, and they haven't really leaned on him to be that. And even when Dobbins was, I'm pretty sure he missed a game last year, they still didn't give Gus Edwards all that much of a run. They brought back Mark Ingram from his deep slumber and had him run until Dobbins got back. So it's not like they were thrusting Edwards into the lineup and saying, here, you're taking Dobbins' workload. I just feel like they run the ball so much, and Vegas is so bad against the run that I think that they'll just pound the rock. And with their wide receiving core being relatively banged up and not really passing the ball much as it is, I can just see it being enough for him to be flex worthy in a pinch.
Fair. All right. You convinced me. Good enough. All right.
That's the point. That's the whole point.
That's totally the point.
I just got to convince you to think about it at least.
Exactly. And I mean, it's intriguing. I definitely was in on Tyson Williams for a little while. I think, like we had said, the Lev Bell signing might end up kind of tanking his value. But
if you were in on him, then it shouldn't be that hard to convince you because Le'Veon Bell's not going to play this week.
Yeah. I just feel like in week 1, it's tough for me to see like a waiver ad really start unless you had like a dire injury. You know what I mean? Like most of your rosters should be fairly deep to an extent that I feel like I'm definitely starting Gus Edwards. I just feel like Tyson Williams is pretty deep of a play. I feel like there'd be like wide receivers or somebody else that I'd probably start before him. But I could see it if he was like you said, if it was in a pinch and it's kind of like you're maybe deciding between like say him and I don't know, like Quez Watkins or something. But even that, I feel like I'd take the upshot on Quez Watkins more. See, like, you know what I mean?
That'll be a high scoring game too, so I'd probably take Quez Watkins in that situation.
Yeah, it just seems I don't know. Aside from like starting a second tight end, maybe I'd start Tyson Williams. You know, I don't know. I'm not like totally in on him for this week, but it's a good matchup. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the matchup and just how often they run the ball. I mean, 56% of the time on the road. I mean, they run the ball a lot on the road. I just don't see Edwards handling 20 plus carries in week 1 after they've already had all these injuries to 2 backs already this season. I feel like they're just going to split that workload up a little bit more than usual.
Interesting. Fair. All right. Mine's not as exciting. Mine's boring. It's a guy who was in the league and, you know, everybody forgot about because they drafted Pat Freiermuth, but Eric Ebron, I feel like if you've decided to punt your tight end position, this is a pretty good waiver ad here. Just depending on who your tight end is. If it was, say, Adam Troutman, who I think is so questionable, say you drafted Irv Smith and you didn't draft anybody else. Eric Ebron, I think, is a good ad. The Bills were 8th worst against tight ends in fantasy points given up in 2020. They gave up over 9 points per game to the position. So for me, along with that, they were also 5th best against wide receivers. So for me, it's going to be a shootout to an extent. The Bills are going to obviously drop back 4 wide receiver sets, 3 wide receiver sets. They're going to spread the ball. They're going to throw it all over. And the Steelers are going to have to do the same. However, the Bills being that much better against wide receivers, Trey White's obviously going to lock down at least one of the wide receivers. And then the corners also aren't too shabby on the other side. So for me, I feel like the passing game is going to almost kind of work through, obviously, the receivers who there'll be some that are relevant. But Eric Ebron, I think, has a good chance to find a good role this week because Pat Freiermuth is still kind of working his way in. However, with how bad the Bills were, there's the fact that Milano was out last year that kind of affected that passing coverage there against the tight ends because Milano's kind of that pass coverage linebacker. Yep. So he is back. He is healthy. So that might skew it a little bit. But I just feel like Ebron against the Bills, last year the Bills were very, very bad against tight ends. And with having to pass the ball a lot more, the Steelers are going to have to target more than the wide receivers. So Ebron to me just feels like he's going to have a good opportunity in the short yardage areas along with the red zone. He's also only owned in 14% of sleeper leagues. So for me, I feel like he's going to be a good target if you do need that tight end start. But I don't know. I just feel like Eric Ebron, a tight end who plays the Bills just seems like a start to me. At least he was last year. So, I mean, they might be better. Like I had said, Milano's back. But I'm still in. I think that we could definitely see at least a touchdown out of Ebron. I feel like you're going to see multiple touchdowns in the game. Obviously, I think it's going to be high scoring. The weather's supposed to be pretty good here, so I don't know how you feel about Eric Ebron, Ryan, but I feel like he's just very undervalued right now for some reason in the tight end position. Like I was surprised when I saw he was only rostered in 14% of redraft leagues. So
yeah, I feel like that's mostly just due because he was just pretty sure he was banged up last year and pretty inconsistent when he was on the field.
I mean, he still finished as a tight end one.
Yeah, but I feel like that's more of the offense than anything else. Like, I feel like with Freiermuth being added is what people are kind of steering away from him, because it does make me a bit nervous having him there, because their third preseason game, their Freiermuth did catch 2 touchdown passes from Ben, and Ben did come out and say that Freiermuth reminds him a lot of Heath Miller, who was obviously a staple in that Steelers offense for years with him. And Ben thinks that he was a steal in the second round, so I feel like he's got a lot of confidence in Freiermuth. So I feel like they might go a decent amount of 2 wide receiver sets and just get both of them involved. So I'm not really sure what to do, because like, you're right. I think this Bills secondary does a decent job on their wide receivers. And I was going to ask you this: who do you think Trey White? Do you think Trey White locks onto somebody? Or do you think he just kind of stays on the right side? And
he'll probably stay on the right side, is my opinion. I mean, you still have 3 very good wide receivers there in Claypool, Smith-Schuster, and Deontay Johnson. So I just feel like he might stay on the one side and just kind of lock down that side, whoever's over there. And that's what makes me think they're not going to run 2 wide receivers or 2 tight end sets. I mean, they might at times, maybe in the red zone, but I just feel like why take one of those 3 guys off for Freiermuth? I mean, not that Freiermuth's bad. I just feel like, what am I gaining? Do you know what I mean? I feel like you're losing in that situation. And they might, because they're going to probably try and run the ball a lot more than they did last year. So you might see the 2 tight end sets a little bit more this year. It just doesn't seem smart when I paid Schuster to come back and I have Chase Claypool, who looked so good last year, and then Deontay Johnson, who, despite his drops, still looked very good last season. So for me, I'm still in on if I was their coaching staff, I wouldn't be putting Freiermuth out there over Chase Claypool right now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Even in the red zone, aside, maybe they want to put Deontay Johnson down, but even maybe Smith-Schuster, but I'm sure you'll see it. It's not like they're never going to run a 2 tight end set. It just seems, to me, it's still Eric Ebron's show. And I think Pat Freiermuth, yes, he looks good, and he is very good. And it could have been a steal in the second round. I really liked Pat Freiermuth through the draft process, especially for fantasy. It just, tight ends tend to take that time. And I feel like Eric Ebron's still going to kind of hold that pass catching role for a little bit, at least early on in the season, at least week 1. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe you see it sooner. Freiermuth kind of takes over. But I think week 1, it's still Eric Ebron's job. And I just feel like against the Bills, it's a very good tight end matchup. So for me, if I need to flex somebody, so for example, if you have, like I said, you had Troutman, or you're worried because of the emergence of Juwan Johnson, or you have had Irv Smith and you're scrambling and you don't want to start Tyler Conklin. You know what I mean? Eric Ebron's a little bit better of an option, I think, just because the offense and the game script. So at least that I foresee that it's going to be. So
yeah, that is definitely a position that I'm going to be monitoring throughout the year, because I highly doubt Freiermuth is being drafted in a whole lot of redraft leagues right now, like just because of
it's got to be like 0%.
Yeah, he's got to be a pretty low percentage. But if you do start to see him get a higher snap share and do start to see him start catching those red zone balls and become a threat, then yeah. But you're probably right. Ebron probably does have that week 1 upper hand over Freiermuth for the time being. That he just makes me nervous. Like I said, with the way Ben was talking about him and the way that he connected with him in that third preseason game, the final game that all their starters started, it was just kind of give me a little bit of a pause when I saw that you're going to be working with him for the show. So I don't know, you could absolutely be right for week 1, but nobody really knows what's going to happen in week 1 except
week 1's terrible. It's so hard.
It's horrible.
Like even like that, like matchups or whatnot. Like teams had so long to plan for the team you're playing in week 1 That it's just like there's always the surprise fantasy player. There's always the guy that you think's going to hit and just is a bust in week one. So
Sammy Watkins is going to be wide receiver 1 for week 1, and then we're guaranteed.
I was in a group chat, and I honestly suggested to someone possibly starting Sammy Watkins because it just seems like, I mean, yeah, Marquise Brown is back, and I'm going to talk about the other player who I think could have a role in week 1, but like Sammy Watkins is due for one blow-up game, and why not be week 1 when this team is just, the Ravens are just injured, and if they're planning on throwing the ball more, why not start week 1? So,
yeah.
But
yeah, week 1 is definitely tough. Week 1 is by far the toughest. You have no idea what teams are thinking, no idea what their offensive playbooks are going to look like, especially with Steelers having a new offensive coordinator. We don't know if he's going to, what tight end he prefers, or maybe they run Najee Harris 35 times.
Oh, they will. They want to. Again, though, too, that's the thing. It's tough, too, because the Bills last year were so bad against the run.
Yep.
So are they going to try and exploit that? So
try to keep our offense off the field. Yeah, like I can. There's a world where Najee Harris touches the ball 35 times on Sunday, and that's how they try to beat Buffalo.
Still not worried.
I'm not worried either. I got a buddy of mine who wanted to make a bet, but I didn't have the extra money. But it was tempting. It was very tempting.
Always. Never root against the Bills. No. Never bet against them also.
Nope.
All right, Ryan. That ends it for our waivers. Week 1, rookie to watch. Who are you looking for?
I am looking at Devonta Smith.
Nice.
I'm excited to see the presumed wide receiver 1 on that team in his first full game. He only played a total of 26 snaps in the preseason, all in the second preseason game for the Eagles. And he only had 2 catches for 19 yards. Given the knee injury he suffered earlier in the offseason, I was curious to see how much they would play him. But they obviously felt comfortable where he was in the offense. And given the fact that he only played 1 game and it was a handful of snaps, the kid's an exceptional route runner. He's super quick, great hands. So I'm excited to see him get his career started and see if he can be that playmaker that the Eagles were missing absolutely terribly last year. And it's a good matchup for him. The over-under for that game is 48. Atlanta gave up the most passing yards and 3rd most passing touchdowns last season. So with him being healthy and being Jalen Hurts' presumed number 1, he could be in for a pretty good start to his career here.
Talk about a game with a lot of people to watch. You know, Calvin Ridley's there. Devontae Smith, you're watching Pitts, you're watching Jalen Hurts.
Is that game?
And it should be a high-scoring game.
I think it has the highest over-under. No, never mind. It's only a over-under of 48.
Yeah, maybe they just think everybody's going to be bad. I don't know.
Maybe.
I see that one hitting over on that one. I feel like I would. Both defenses are a little dicey. I don't know. But yeah, like you said, I'm excited to see Devontae Smith too. Heisman winner, obviously, something that doesn't happen often for wide receivers. The kid's a great route runner. He has good speed. And I mean, I still can't get over the clip against New England where he just basically dusted that cornerback on that short little out route almost. That I don't know. Devontae Smith to me is someone that I think, despite his BMI concerns, is a player that is going to exceed most people's expectations. I feel like a lot of people were down on him because of his size. They were worried that he was going to carry like an injury concern over, which he kind of did early on in the preseason, kind of had struggles there staying a little healthy, but he's a smart player. He knows how to get down and avoid the big hits. And he's just such a good route runner that he's going to avoid those hits because it's going to be hard to cover him. And there's not going to be anybody close enough to really give him a good pop as long as Jalen Hurts hits him. So I'm in. I'm excited to see it too. I think that he has probably the closest potential to being the Justin Jefferson of this class based on pure opportunity. So, and talent. I mean, it's not like he's a schmuck, you know what I mean? He's a very talented wide receiver, and he, like you said, he should be their top receiver. So,
yeah, he's one of maybe 2 or 3 rookie wide receivers that could lead their team in targets this season, and nobody would really bat an eye about it.
No, I wouldn't even think twice. To a guy that's definitely not going to lead his team in targets, but week 1, rookie to watch, maybe someone you want to plug in if you want to. I'd probably start him over Tyson Williams because Ryan's weird and wants to start him. But Tylan Wallace, I kind of liked him coming into the draft. I feel like landing in Baltimore and his late draft capital kind of killed that for us as far as fantasy goes, at least as far as the statistics / analytics side you want to go with. But I think right now this offense is injury ridden and it's just not great. And I feel like you're looking at a team that wants to pass more. And to me, you have now Sammy Watkins, who we alluded to, who could be possible blow-up type guy. Then you have Marquise Brown, who seems to be healthy, according to the injury report I saw on ESPN. So he's definitely going to be a field stretcher. But the underneath routes are going to be open for someone to take aside from Mark Andrews. To me, Tylan Wallace had 4 productive years at OSU, and he produced over 3,400 yards and over 26 touchdowns. So it's not that he's a slouch. I think his injury concerns that he had in college kind of let him slip through the draft when they weren't able to get the normal combine and the normal process through this draft process due to COVID. I think you saw a lot of players that had injury concerns kind of slip in the draft. I feel like Tylan Wallace, when he landed in Baltimore, was a little bit of a steal. But like you had alluded to, the Raiders is a great matchup for me. It's the 3rd easiest matchup for wide receivers in week 1, according to Pro Football Focus's metrics. So for me, somebody in this game is going to pop off, whether it's Watkins, Wallace, or Brown. I'm not sure. But to me, I feel like Tylan Wallace is definitely a guy to watch. He's very valuable in a lot of leagues because he's not going drafted. So if you have a guy who went on IR and you need to start a wide receiver or possibly in like a very deep league, he's definitely an option. So for me, I'm excited to see what he can do with this opportunity because they also lost their first round pick in Rashad Bateman, who I like a lot. And once he returns, I feel like Tylan Wallace is going to fall to the wayside unless he can kind of prove something here in these first couple of weeks. So for me, I'm definitely watching him in this game because it should be a good matchup like you had alluded to, Ryan, even with the run game. The Raiders defense just isn't that great. So I'm excited. I want to see him take advantage of this opportunity. And he doesn't even have to be spectacular. He doesn't even have to hit 100 yards. I think just a nice maybe 80 yards, good 5 catches or so, maybe sees 7 to 8 targets, maybe a touchdown. Maybe. I don't know. Be really over-exceeding what I want him to do. But I'm curious to see. How about you, Ryan? Anything on Tylan Wallace, or are you just meh?
Yeah, I'm not as high on him as apparently you are for this week, just because Watkins is playing, Marquise Brown is playing.
When can Watkins stay healthy? Honestly, though, these 3 can't stay healthy. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with the Ravens. I don't know if there's something in the water in Baltimore, but I don't know.
But the other thing is that the fact that they just don't really pass enough. Like if those 3 all stay healthy through the entire game, plus Devin Duvernay is supposed to be playing, and he's been relatively impressive with his chances this preseason. And I think he's ahead of Wallace probably on the depth chart unless I didn't see something in my while I was looking things up earlier. I just don't see them passing enough in order to get 3 guys involved.
Depth charts are fake. Come on. We all know this.
Marquise Brown did end the year relatively strong. I mean, he had 6 touchdowns from week 12 on last year. So I'm a little.
I mean, he's a deep play. If you're going to start Tylan Wallace, you're in sad shape. And I may or may not have a team that's in sad shape that may need to start Tylan Wallace. So just saying.
Well, see, what are you giving me? What are you giving me crap for Tyson Williams then? When it's at least it's in their game plan to get him involved, as opposed to a team that throws the ball 40% of the time.
They said they're going to throw more.
Yeah, 41% of the time this year.
That's Greg Rowe. No, 40.5.
Yeah, 40.3 and a half.
Yeah. We know it's Greg Roman. He ain't throwing the ball more. We saw it in Buffalo.
Hey,
all right, Ryan.
You see we got some comments you might want to touch on real quick.
I do. That's where I was going to go next. Okay. Josh said hello. Hello, Josh. However, Justin has a question. Jalen Waddle or Michael Carter? He has Justin Jefferson, A-Rob, Tyreek Hill, Michael Gallup, and DJ Moore at wide receiver. So I'm guessing this is a flex play. I could be wrong.
How many flexes you got?
I have no idea. I don't know. He just said he has those players.
No, I'm just saying in general. Like, I'm not speaking to you. I'm just saying in general. Like, if you got Jefferson, A. Rob, Hill, you're obviously starting those three. DJ Moore is a must start for me. The only person that's really there that's questionable is Gallup, and that's just because he's going against Tampa's defense. That should be a high scoring game as well.
Yeah, I'm probably not starting Gallup. I can tell you that. But I mean, if you figure, say they have a 2 or 3 wide receiver start limit, and then 2 flexes, you'd be talking about these guys, 2 or 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's what I mean though. Like, if you have, say, you start, like, he didn't say what his lineup was or how he needed to construct his lineup, but assuming he has to start 3 wide receivers, which by the looks of it, I can't imagine him not needing to start 3 if he's got those guys. So obviously JJ, A. Rob, and Tyreek Hill would be the 3 starts. Probably got DJ Moore lined up in a flex spot, and then your choice between Waddle and Michael Carter at the other flex spot. And I'm probably
I'm going to take Jalen Waddle while you think about it. I just think Michael Carter's not going to see as much of a run as we think in week 1. I think Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman kind of outplayed him in the preseason. So I think Michael Carter's going to be a slow cooker. I think he might have to wait a week or 2 to really get the most out of Michael Carter. So for me, I think Jalen Waddle can step in. They don't have Will Fuller. He's gone to suspension in week 1. So I expect Jalen Waddle to be involved a lot in that game. So for me, I'm flexing Jalen Waddle because the flex I'm shooting for that upside, and I think Michael Carter doesn't have it this week, personally.
But against the Patriots defense that are usually pretty tough, given week 1, Belichick's always relatively prepared for week 1 against a young quarterback.
But Jalen Waddle's game, I guarantee he's going to be a line of scrimmage type guy. He's going to be like the Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? They're going to get manufactured touches. They're going to get short passes to him. It's going to be him making plays after the catch. Do you know what I'm saying? He's just so much more explosive to me that Michael Carter is I think he was great at UNC. I think that he had some issues coming into the draft, and he just didn't seem to win that job. It was an open backfield. You know what I mean? Aside from maybe the coaching staff having some bias towards Tevin Coleman, but they didn't know Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson, it seems like, outplayed him. So for me, I don't see Carter getting used enough. Jalen Waddle could see 10 targets this game. Do you know what I'm saying? Despite the defense, Jalen Waddle could definitely see it because you still have Devontae Parker. So Gilmore's most likely going with Parker because he usually follows the 1. And then, I mean, unless they give him Jalen Waddle, in which then I'm going to be completely wrong because I'm sure Gilmore will lock down Waddle, but I see him covering Devontae Parker. So
I think I'm just going to use what I would be doing in my own lineup here, not knowing anything about his setup or scoring settings or anything like that. I'm going to go with Waddle just because of how you mentioned that home run ability that he does have. Like, all it takes is 1 for him. Tua could hit him for a 90-yard bomb in the second half, and that's your flex spot right there. So
that's what I mean. He only has to throw it 2 yards, and Waddle could take it 90.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So and Michael Carter doesn't have that. I love Michael Carter, but he doesn't have that explosion. So for me, you know what I mean? I just feel like if I can, I tend to like to flex a lot of wide receivers more than running backs, just because I feel like there's that big play home run ability with the wide receiver more than the running back, unless you have 4 stud running backs. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's the other thing is that with having Jefferson, A-Rob, and Hill, and even DJ Moore, I think those guys are all super safe, guaranteed wide receiver 2 numbers at the very least. Like, I think Jefferson, A-Rob, and Hill are probably wide receiver 1s, and DJ Moore is probably locked in wide receiver 2. So I would take the home run swing on Waddle and just see what kind of happens in that backfield with the Jets for this week. And I mean, even against the Patriots defense that usually is tough, is usually prepared, I would, I'm taking the home run with Waddle there.
So there you have it, Justin. It's a unanimous Jalen Waddle. All right, Ryan. Aside from that, week 1, Thursday night. Anybody you're starting?
Well, you're starting your studs. Obviously, there's a bunch of studs in that game too. I mean, you got
Who?
Dak, Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Zeke, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. I'm starting AB if I possibly can. If I
Ronald Jones?
I'm actually avoiding the Tampa backfield if I can. To be honest with you. Just
Yeah,
because
it's really dicey. Last year it seemed all right, but now with Giovanni Bernard and like they're saying he's going to be the third down back, there's like zero pass catching upside.
that's exactly the issue. Is that Gio got
So
added
I'm
that
like-
backfield? You don't know who's going to see. I mean, they rode Leonard Fournette to a Super Bowl, but during the regular season they did not give him a whole lot of work. So I don't know if
I feel like it's going to be hot hand, Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, and then you're going to see Giovanni Bernard on third down.
Yeah, and it very well could be that. So that should in week 1. I'm trying to take as little risk as humanly possible in week 1 because I don't want to start my season off with an L. So I'm just going to avoid backfields or wide receiver rooms that I'm not 100% sure on, and just kind of start the guys that I know for sure are going to get work the best that I possibly can. And I'm not starting Tony Pollard either unless I absolutely have to. I'm not starting. I wouldn't fault anybody for starting Rojo or Fournette in their lineup because it's going to be a high scoring game and the Cowboys defense is not very good, even though it has improved from last year. But I can't personally say that I trust that backfield at all by any means.
No, I agree. And I feel like if I had to pick, I'm starting Ronald Jones over Leonard Fournette personally. I feel like they like Ronald Jones. I think they rode Fournette because he was hot. You know what I mean? That's just kind of what they're going to do. And I just think they want to give Ronald Jones the reins. Like he's more explosive. He's kind of the more exciting back that can definitely be a little bit more of a game changer than Fournette can at this current state in his career. It just seems like every time they give him an opportunity, he kind of fumbles or does something to kind of ruin that. So I don't know. But if I had to pick, it's probably going to be Ronald Jones over Leonard Fournette, I think, in week 1. So
yeah, I have to agree just for the simple fact that I feel like he has more of a home run upside than
do we know what is Fournette's contract? Did they re-sign him this offseason?
I believe they signed him to a 1-year deal.
Like, are you a little like I'm a little perplexed, like sitting here thinking like they kept all these guys. I get it, like you want playmakers on your team, but like Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, Giovanni Bernard, Keyshawn Vaughn. They have someone else, don't they, too?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Just seems, I don't know, kind of interesting that they kept both Fournette and Ronald Jones a little bit, but
he signed a roughly $3 million deal with $2 million guaranteed for a year. And I
that's
think
not too bad then.
that's mainly just them wanting to keep that entire squad together. Like they just wanted to keep everything consistent and everything exactly the same and not change a whole lot because they feel like they have a team to run it back, which they do. So
isn't it scary that they said that I saw something the other day that they came out and said that like the offense is finally getting on the same page?
Yeah, just now, even though
they just won the Super Bowl and nonchalantly say, yeah, we weren't on the same page, you know.
Yeah, Bruce Arians came out and said AB is looking like Pittsburgh AB. And
yeah. It's a little scary. Like if that's the truth, if they're going to be better, like, oof, with that defense.
I mean, they average like 31 points or 32 points, something like that, the back half of the year. I mean, that's realistically what they could be doing every single week with that offense. I mean, their offensive line is good. Their running backs are spectacular, but they're good. I mean, the wide receiving core is spectacular. They got 3 good tight ends. Like their team's gonna be tough to beat. As long as Brady stays healthy, they're gonna be tough.
I agree. All right, Ryan, before we sign off, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and what you got coming up?
You can find me on Twitter at Mackie_FFB. I have an article that I just submitted for the FF League winners that should be dropping here really, really soon. We just dropped a week 1 sleeper article that from Yards Per that I was a part of. If you want to go check that out, it's on retweeted on my Twitter. It's on the Yards Per Twitter page. So just hoping to keep putting out stuff for them, and DMs are always open as always. You guys can. I know a lot of people have a lot of start sit questions coming up, which we might have something in store for that.
You can tell them.
If you want to talk about it yet or not, but
you can tell them.
I'll
let you tell them. Yeah, go ahead.
So every Sunday morning, we're not really sure, haven't decided quite on a time yet, I don't believe, but we are going to do a live start sit where we're going to let people, not everybody obviously, but people that are willing to come onto the show, put their lineup up on the screen, and we're just going to kind of talk guys through what we think they should do for their lineup. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to listen to us, but just how we would probably go about your lineup, knowing your scoring settings, knowing how your lineup needs to look. And then we're obviously going to be taking questions throughout the show, talking about our top starts for the week, top sits for the week, and things like that. So it's going to be a really fun show, really interesting. Excited to get it started, and hopefully people hop on. Hopefully people enjoy it. I know I'm excited for it. Jeremy's put in a lot of hard work to get it rolling, and I'm really excited for that show. So hopefully we get some listeners coming in and asking questions, and we can help you guys win your weeks this season.
Well said. I like it. But yeah, like Ryan had alluded to, I think that's our big push this season. It's going to be the Sunday morning show. I believe we talked about 10 o'clock-ish maybe, probably coming on. But like he said, I think we're going to try and make it as interactive as we can for anybody who wants to come on. If you don't want to come on and have be live on the show with your video feed or anything like that, we can always set up a time frame that we're going to shoot for to get when we're going to pull up your roster and go over it. And you can just hop in the comments section and kind of fire stuff off us. Either way, we definitely will want to try and make it as inclusive as we can. Like Ryan had said, it's not going to be able to have everybody on every single week, but if we can, we're going to try and get a good couple people in there. Like I said, we're probably going to go for 3 hours leading up to kickoff, so that way then, you know what I mean? We can help you with any questions you got, any last minute start sit stuff. So I'm excited. Like you said, it's been a process, but we're getting there. Of course, I switched computers now, so I don't know if this has PowerPoint yet. So
no.
Yeah.
It's going to ruin our whole thing.
Yeah, we'll have to start over. No. But you guys can find me on Twitter at PopesFFH. Keep an eye out. I'm going to do some start sit stuff over at Yards Per, an article probably every Thursday or so. It's going to drop. And then I'm going to have stuff over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network as well. I'm also going to guest star on the Dynasty Dorks podcast. This week I'm on Friday, but I'm going to be on weekly at some point, whether it's Tuesdays after our show or it's going to be Fridays. So tune in Friday, 9 p.m. We're going to do start sit questions and recap week 1. So till next week, everybody, take care.